to Living by Design. I am Scott Veatch, and
I am Danette Veatch.
And we're here to talk all things wellness. It is a topic that we love, and it's really become not only a trend, but it's very intentional in our world of design. And so in our first podcast episode, we're just going to break down what we mean by wellness and design. And so fundamentally, it's about how we feel in our space. So have you ever walked into a restaurant or a room or some place where you said, oh my gosh, this feels so inviting?
Or the opposite, where it feels completely off.
That's right. It feels
and
oppressive.
You don't know why.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is really what we are thinking when we talk about our built environment and wellness is how we feel in our space and how our space makes us feel.
Right.
And so thinking about that, Danette, why is it trending? Why now? What do you think is brought this to a forefront where a decade ago we were talking other topics, more technology and innovation, but today it's all about wellness and how we feel in the built space? What makes a difference?
I think because our busy world that we live in, it just keeps getting busier and busier and busier. The more technology we have and the higher technology, then it puts more and more of a demand on us because we get to a place where we never really rest. We never really get to stop using technology. So we are not taking time to basically separate ourselves from our life and spend the quality time in rest and relaxation and just having more mindfulness in what you're doing at home or in the spaces that you're creating. How are you promoting that wellness? And the reason why I think it's become such a hot topic now is we've slowly moved into more of this wellness culture mindset. Heck, I can remember in the early 2000s when people still were not understanding yoga. Like, why would you want to do yoga? But once people started to really understand, our culture here in America really starts to understand that it's all about bringing balance into your life and relaxing and getting back in touch with the basics, then I think that has now shifted over because we like the way that feels and it helps to bring balance into our daily lives with our living spaces. Not just something we go do, but it's more something that we embrace and can become, as well as like the work environments as well. There's been a lot of studies and people are discovering how much more productive people are when they feel more grounded, when they don't have anxiety and the stressors are reduced in the workplace and in the home. So involving all the sensories and taking those things into considerations really shifts the way people think, play, and feel.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't have this conversation without talking about COVID.
True.
I mean, the global event that held us all captive in our houses that became houses of death. I mean, that was a wake-up call. Post-apocalyptic, if you will, post-COVID. We got to experience what it is to be breathing our air, right? 24/7.
And to feel how we feel in our homes when people are stuck there. You're right. Because when people are stuck there 24/7, all of a sudden now they're just like, oh, I really don't like the way I feel in my home. I need to change this. I need to change that. And so they actually discovered what was really bothering them in their homes, which makes sense.
Yeah.
They got to spend more time in them.
Absolutely. A lot of the public policy for the last few decades has governed the way public spaces are created. There's a lot more rules for accessibility. There's a lot more rules for how that public environment aids in our wellness or health and is more attuned to people. But then when we all got shut in, who was talking, realized, well, wait a second, we're not in public anymore. We're just in our private spaces governed by ourselves. And what we created for ourselves was, in a way, just things that were toxic. I mean, sure, the disease in COVID's toxic, but when you don't have truly fresh air, when all these surfaces you brought into the house are emitting things that are, whether it's microchemicals or VOCs or just being a shut-in, right? And not able to be in the outdoors, in sunlight. All these things became, now we have to talk about what we do intentionally with our homes and not only with the public spaces. Because a lot of architecture and design school is based on governing those public spaces. And it, not that it's an afterthought, but it's not considered as prominent of the profession, if you will, of design and architecture. So it's reworking that whole narrative now,
It is. And that is a big thing since post-COVID or during COVID, what it all created and the demand for people wanting to be in their homes and work from their homes and enjoying their work environment versus going to the office. Now people are throwing fits that they actually have to go into the office. There's been a big move into having home offices and creating very separate spaces for people to work in their homes where they can feel very productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thinking about what are some of the trending current considerations for wellness design. We think about things that are top of mind is bringing the outdoors in,
right?
Biophilic design. Thoughts about how we can practically do that other than creating a garden inside, which that's pretty awesome. I mean, we had a tower garden during COVID, and that was super cool. Growing plants in a indoor, what do you call
Aeroponic.
that? Aeroponic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was very cool by Juice Plus.
Yeah. That was really neat.
Juice Plus. But so basically, creating spaces that are closer to windows or installing more windows in your home so you can have
natural
light and be able to look out and have a really nice view of nature. I mean, when you agree that, just being able to look outside every now and then just gives you a sense of calmness and also helps you to refocus on whatever you're working on, because you can kind of stare outside and think about whatever it is and feel connected, but yet you're still focusing on what it is you need to do. But it's not the same as staring at a blank wall where you're just like, oh, I feel like I'm trapped. You can feel like connected to outdoors and the feelings that those outdoors inspire and evoke in you. And so it helps you, helps reduce stress, anxiety, and once again, just helps you to really focus on what it is that you're working on. So putting in more windows and having more natural light is a really big thing.
Materials, like biophilic design is not just plants. It's also thinking about the texture of not being cold, modern,
like
which are great. I mean, marble and stone, but now it's a swing back to combining those modern elements with wood and cork and natural things.
Right.
And even if we're mimicking that from a laminate or some kind of an engineered product, it's still that visually you're bringing warmth into the space. I mean, oak was the thing of the 80s, and we said, oh, no more oak, right?
That's because everything was oak cabinets.
Orange cabinets, exactly.
But now it's a lot different.
Well, then we swung into painted cabinets, and that was a thing, and or just very bland textures. And now we're getting much more richer textures, and I love that. Not just oak, but rift and quarter sawn product.
More than natural tones.
Yeah, absolutely. Bamboo is something that, brings us to even enjoy that Zen feeling of Asian kind of, influences in our culture. So I like that a lot. Yeah.
Minimalistic design.
Yeah. And so thinking about sensory things with biophilic design, What about the cues of color, right?
Right.
So greens or things that are natural in terms of the tone lend us towards a more vibrant feeling, So if everything is drab or gray, then obviously, well, that's restful in a way. I mean, under a rock, but
Under a rock.
I mean,
Well, basically, colors affect our moods, the way we feel, how we see color affects
yeah,
how we feel. And so using colors, chromotherapy, in order to help people either be inspired, um, or to maybe process some grief, or to just feel calm and relaxed. It depends, what is it that you want to do. So we use color in different spaces affects everything. Do you want a room to be energizing, or do you want to walk in there and just feel really calm and peaceful? Or, do you want to create like a room that would be a room to be, what I would say, allow you to concentrate, really focus. So what colors are you going to put into these different spaces?
mm-hmm.
So you want to surround yourself with something that's going to help you process grief. Well, it needs to have a violet undertone to it. You want something that's going to be very peaceful and calming, then you need to use your blues and your greens. You want to use something that's more grounding, then you want to go deeper greens and maybe some neutrals. So it just really depends on what you're wanting to do. An invigorating, inspiring space, yellow, oranges,
Yeah.
So do you want to stimulate appetite, which is really good for restaurants? Use orange. Orange stimulates appetites.
Although I'm not really sure that I want my kitchen to be orange.
No, I said restaurants.
I mean, if anything, it's not going to go for the diet. That's not.
No, it's not good for the diet. No.
Definitely not getting orange Tupperware or whatever. So no, eat too much. So is that one of the most practical things that people can do, on a small scale to begin thinking about wellness in their space? So like, you get a brand new house or you move in, what is the trend? We always want to paint it neutral. It's all white, it's bland, it's lifeless. And while we have pops of color with furniture, should one of the first priorities be good paint selection? And for that matter, good paint, so we're not just bringing toxic things into our built environment. But would you think that is a easy and practical, first step to a healthier space would be choosing the right color palette in their house?
Yeah, of course. You want to make sure that, you're lining up your undertones, having the right hue. To have a cohesive design, you want to look at, what things are staying, what things are not, that you're not going to remove or replace, So your fixed fixtures, like, for example, your flooring, your countertop, or your tile, if you're not changing any of those things, and you want to line up your undertones. But then also take into consideration, what are you trying to do? What kind of mood are you trying to evoke in your space? What are you wanting to create? And so, having the right colors and starting with the right color on your walls is really important for your emotional and mental well-being.
So thinking about the difference between design in terms of just aesthetic value, the architectural digest wow of a space, but then curating that same space in a way that would be attuned to their wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be a driving difference there? So if you're choosing color for a wow factor, or are you choosing color to attune to someone's way they want to live, or maybe even the way they need to live? Because often, I don't even know if people have envisioned or considered that dimension in their life. Like, I could feel different in my space,
I don't think that people, perhaps maybe more in the past especially, people haven't really considered the emotional and mental well-being aspects of paint in the home. I don't think they've actually thought about that. Oh, I like this color. That looks good, or that looks good. But then when they put it together with their different aesthetics that they have, sometimes they're just not happy and they don't understand why they're not happy. It's not bringing about the feelings that they want to feel. So the wow factor, architectural design versus just how you want to live in your home, comes down to who are you, and getting to know the person in the home and what they want for their family. Like, what are you wanting to provide your family? How do you want to surround your family with, whatever emotions? Maybe you've got a child or an older adult that, has some sensory needs. And so you really need to pay attention to what kind of colors you're putting on the walls. You need to pay attention to the sound, to the lighting, to the whole 9 yards. And maybe you have a room for the kids to play in and you want them to create, to spark creativity. So then you're going to want to paint it, a yellow, some stimulating color, bright colors, maybe several different bright colors to stimulate that. So the difference between the wow factor and then how someone lives in their homes is basically all about supporting the wellness of the humans that live there and what the goal is. If it's not just about impressing someone, and it's more about loving and caring for the people as well as your pets in the home, then, you're going to want to have something that is, like you said, no VOCs, low VOCs, and you're going to want to have colors that serve the purpose of the human that lives there.
Yeah, absolutely. So other things besides paint and materials, I think about technology.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last 20 years, technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right?
Yeah. It's also made our lives very busy.
And so what is one of the things? Yeah, well,
no one
true.
puts their phones down anymore. It's like you're watching TV or whatever. You still have your phone on, right? Your kids are like, can we not have your phone at the table, please?
And so how is now technology beginning for today changing the way we attune our spaces for wellness? So I think about how, there are things that, so humidifiers, the air quality.
Air quality is big.
And I think about how comfort, the Nest thermostat is supposed to learn how we live and adjust itself so that we can have, it's easy, so you don't have to go adjust the thermostat, right?
You can do it right from your phone while you're laying in bed.
That is true.
Which is nice. I use that very frequently.
Although getting up might be more helpful. I mean, actually moving is actually a very healthy thing, right? Maybe that's what we should do is get, the new trend is away from ease and wellness actually makes us do things, right?
True.
That's
yes, very true.
Considerations. A good podcast for the future to talk about strategies to engage ourselves. But I think about, you talked about natural light.
Right.
And so I think dealing with the way LED light is and how can we affect our mood through different Kelvin of color of the light.
Right.
And that's something that is now trending where you can choose the same light fixture can have 5 different settings.
Right.
And so then you can say, well, my bathroom, I need a brighter light, or perhaps where I'm studying, it needs to be more like daylight,
right,
so that it's more alert. But then my bedroom, preparing for bed and sleep, I need it to be much lower of a Kelvin so that it mimics, the sun going down.
What's your favorite Kelvin?
I like 4,000.
What makes you feel amazing?
For sure. 4,000 is great. But it's neat to have layers of light.
Yeah.
And that's helpful too, that we're not relying entirely on the can lights, but we have all these other facets of light and ambience. So we what are some things do you like to have to accent walls, features and focal points, or throwing shadows and depths? Those are a lot of great things.
They are. I like to have, and I also like to have like in the bathroom, for example, if you've got under the cabinetry lighting, you've got your vanity lighting, and you've got your recessed lighting in the ceilings. It's really nice that you can coordinate all of those to be in the same, just the same color. So it makes it a really nice cohesive design. And depending upon what color you have on your walls, you can pull out the color, the undertone of your paint color. For example, if you've got a blue undertone, like a true white that has a blue undertone to it, and then you have the Kelvin of your lights to be higher versus the lower Kelvin, then it's going to pull out that color. It's going to help reflect that blue. But if you have your Kelvin a really low Kelvin, so then it reflects more yellow and gold, then the wall's going to look more green, which you may not want that for your design, what you're doing. So the lighting is really important in how you feel and what you're trying to evoke from a space with all of the elements involved, whether it's your tile, your flooring, paint, countertop, the whole 9 yards. All those hues will reflect whatever you're putting on it. So it's really important to have those all synchronized and harmonized.
Yeah, absolutely. We think about, for wellness design, materials that we choose, in our hard surfaces. And there's a lot of things that we may have a wonderful space that we've created with air quality. We've got both humidifiers and dehumidifiers. We're dealing with the, climate as well as air purification. But then we decide, well, we're going to bring something in that is not natural material. And the consideration of perhaps certain materials are inexpensive, but yet they're not healthy for us. They're toxic over time.
Yeah.
And so that is something that we want to be talking about. And
we'll have to have an episode on that at some point in time because, like even the carpets, everyone uses carpet, but they're made out of plastics and all sorts of crazy things. And so over time, they release toxins in the air, and that affects your breathing quality.
They are definitely trapping dust and things that people with allergies and even people that don't have allergies now may develop, allergies.
Yeah.
And so the importance of choosing things that are timeless, like hardwood flooring, and even just hardwood flooring, what are you coating that with?
Right, exactly.
So there's other considerations besides just the material, but how is it maintained and what things are brought into the built environment.
Right. I love wool.
Yeah, natural materials.
I love wool so much. It's such a great product that you can use for area rugs, or you can even get wool carpet. But it's just so nice because of cleaning. It lasts forever. It repels dirt. If you get it muddy, it dries. Just vacuum it up. It's a really great product. It really helps people that have sensitivity to different things.
Yeah, linen, draperies. Right?
It's wonderful. Yeah.
Cotton elements. Again, things. Often we talk not only from how we feel in a space, which we feel a lot better when those materials are natural, but we also it's a safer environment. I've heard people talk about that we've essentially created little powder kegs to live in because
true, though.
all the polyester and things, they just literally go up in flames in seconds.
It's true. Yeah.
Whereas cotton's naturally, against flammability, and so we've just done ourselves a disservice by filling those spaces with a bunch of stuff that is not only not good for us from a air quality standpoint, but then, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's interesting. Something new that we're also talking about is sensory, how materials are to the touch, and that has become more of a topic that wasn't 20 years ago.
Right, yeah.
a lot of it's because how the materials shifted into these man-made, smooth, everything became ultra refined.
Right.
And so now we're moving back to, I wouldn't say grass cloth on the walls, but we're moving back to textures.
Yes.
And visual textures, as well as tactile, like actually feeling those textures.
Right.
Everything doesn't need to be shiny and polished.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the antiquing of knobs and things that make you feel that it's more comfortable. And so that's something that is new for us to talk about in wellness, creating and curating a space that incorporates multi-layers of sensory objects, you know? So that's really cool.
It's important. It's important to pay attention to sensory needs, not only just if you need to be cautious of what type, like too much light. So a glare on a countertop for a mature adult, can cause a lot of problems. It can cause it to look wet or slippery, but then also it affects the eyes and how we see things. So that, once again, the lighting, but then also, like you were saying, the texture of different things, it brings more interest into different items, gives your home depth and dimension, and all these things are really important. So whether you need to have more sensory in your home, or for a way of giving your home more dimension, or you need to have specific sensory needs, to be careful to help some people. Some people don't like the way certain things feel. It causes an irritant to them. So you have to be mindful of what type of fabrics you're using in your home, what type of materials, are irritants to some people, because a home is supposed to be a place that supports you, right? Supports your well-being and those who live there as well. So paying attention to all those details is very important to creating a nice space that not only feels safe, but comforting as well.
Yeah, and so I have a lot of things to talk about on this podcast. We're
Yes,
going
we
to break
do.
down each one of these elements and have guests on to talk more specifically about them. And another facet of really good wellness design is removing things like editing. A lot of times we talk about adding,
Yep.
right? Yep. But then we have this
clutter
aspect that, right. So
decluttering spaces, which is important.
without intention, we just collect.
Right.
And there's something to be said about that chaos and oppression, but maximalism is returning in that architectural kind of design. But I wouldn't say minimalism is necessary, because we don't feel comfortable when
there's a balance.
There is a sense of harmony between too much and too little.
Right.
And a lot of it can be rotated seasonally, where design and styling of your space really should be like the seasons. You don't want your indoor built space to be identical every year, every day. There needs to be some change, and that's helpful, right?
It can be very helpful for certain people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Other people like things to remain the same.
Well,
they never change. So we have to take those things into consideration
preferences,
as well.
What is it? As the doctor would say, just because this is how you want to eat doesn't mean this is how you should eat. Right?
True. And some people have a hard time.
I do burgers every day, but I don't.
Some people have a hard time because of the emotional attachments to different things that belong in their home. Yeah. And so where do you place those things that are really important to you? One thing, putting in a box, just hanging on to it just to have it, or let's get it out and let's showcase it. And how can we showcase the things that are important?
And does everything have to be showcased?
Everything should be showcased.
All the time.
No, not all the time. Absolutely. That's that whole seasonal thing, right?
That's right. There is a time for everything and in its place. Yes, that's right.
I would agree.
And so, to summarize this first episode, we just want to talk about the small steps that can make impact, and what are tangible takeaways that someone can do something. And so what would you say of the things that we've talked about just today? What is something someone could do to move forward and having good intentional design for their home?
Well, I would first ask myself, if I was somebody, I would ask myself, how do I feel in my home and how do I want to feel in my home? And I would begin to look at color of my walls. I would begin to look at the things that I'm using to style my home with. And I would begin to look at the clutter. And if it's has too many items, then maybe start pulling out some of those things that you don't need, and like you said, putting in a box, maybe having seasonal rotation would be good. And then from there, I would go to say, okay, do I really like this, what I've chosen for my couch? Or do I really like the color of utensils and, tools that I use in my kitchen and whatever I'm putting into my kitchen, my towels and my hot pads or things like that? Or maybe I don't like that. Why am I still holding on to it? So I begin to look at the color aspects and how you really want to evoke different feelings and start moving in that direction. Just start with one room. Pick one room and start with one room, whether it's your living room, kitchen, maybe even it's just your bathroom. Start someplace and then move forward and apply the same concepts as you move on from room to room.
Right on. I like that. And so we have the power to choose how we live in our space and
Yes,
how our space can help us live.
Yes, we can. We have the power
Absolutely.
to choose how we want to feel in our own home.
That is really good design.
Yes, it is.
I like that. All right. So This is for a little fun. You can ask me a question. I'll ask you a question. And so our future guests will do this lightning round in 60 seconds, something about us. So my question to you is, this year, what is your favorite cocktail? Whether it's beer, wine, or whatever.
Right. So there's a wine by Josh, the brand Josh, okay? And it's a white wine. And it's a blend between a Sauvignon and a Grigio. And so it's really, really, really good. And I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's a really great wine. It's the perfect blend. And so I really like that wine.
All right, wine by Josh.
Yes, It's a white wine by Josh. I wish I knew what it was called.
Your turn.
Okay, so Scott, what is your kryptonite?
Well, that would be my short-term memory. It's forgetting when I'm at an event and someone says their name.
You know my name, right? You know my name, right?
Huh? And then you're like, hi, John. And you're like, come back to him in 5 minutes. You're like, Mike, right? That is my kryptonite. So.
That is very frustrating.
All right, your turn. What's your irrational fear?
Oh, my irrational fear. Okay, so my irrational fear is working.
Oh, that's encouraging. I'm so glad that you're a principal in this company. That's great.
Okay, I'm just kidding. No, irrational fear would probably be clowns, which is just so silly. But I just don't.
I think of Modern Family.
Yeah, I just don't. Well, yeah, I just don't like. I don't like clowns.
Okay. All right.
Scott, a book you loved this year or recently?
That's got to be The 5 Voices.
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah. And what is your voice? I'm a nurturer, and you are a.
I am a pioneer.
That's right.
Pioneer connector, and you're a nurture creative.
That's right. Yeah, that's a super cool book. So, in conclusion, we just want to wrap this up and say, please subscribe to our podcast and look forward new things coming up about all things wellness design. And send us a message, email us. In the show notes, you'll have our email. We'd love to hear from you and your ideas. So, thank you so much.
Boxland Media. Think big.